The Department of Justice has filed a lawsuit against Google, a landmark move in an antitrust investigation that's been going on for more than a year, involving the most powerful players in the tech industry. Today's lawsuit also marks the government's most significant act to protect competition since its groundbreaking case 20 years ago against Microsoft. RT's Rachel Blevins is joining us now from the newsroom with more on this. So, Rachel, what more can you tell us about this lawsuit?
Well, Manila, the Justice Department is finally taking action against one of the most powerful tech giants in the country, alleging in a new lawsuit that Google is guilty of violating federal antitrust laws. The lawsuit accuses Google of using exclusionary agreements to stamp out its rivals and paying billions of dollars to distributors to secure default status over competing search providers. They say Google has gone beyond just trying to be the best on the internet and has engaged in illegal practices to ensure that they stay at the top, using an aggressive campaign to undermine anyone they view as a significant threat. The DOJ was joined by Republican attorneys general from 11 states, including Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Missouri, and Texas, and more are expected to join from both sides of the aisle. According to the lawsuit, the DOJ is now taking action because they see that American consumers are forced to accept Google's policies, privacy practices, and use of personal data, all while new companies with innovative business models cannot emerge from Google's long shadow. And just to give you an idea of the type of power the internet search engine has, Google accounts for a staggering 90% of global online searches. Now, Manila, the government's antitrust investigation also looked at Facebook, Apple, and Amazon, so we could see even more action taken against the tech industry in the coming months.
So, Rachel, how has Google responded to the DOJ's ongoing investigation?
Well, Google has repeatedly defended its actions and argued that it is engaging in what it calls robust and fair competition. In a statement released last year in response to the DOJ, Google's senior vice president of global affairs said the company has answered many questions on these issues over the years in the United States as well as overseas across many aspects of their business. So this is nothing new for them. Now, as a reminder, Google was previously investigated by the Federal Trade Commission over suspected antitrust violations, but that investigation was suddenly called off in 2013, sparking accusations that Google had gotten a little too close to the Obama administration. So now it remains to be seen if the government's case against the tech giant will stick this time around. Reporting in the newsroom, Rachel Blevins, RT.
In the meantime, a recent report from the House Judiciary Subcommittee, following a year-long investigation into big tech's market dominance, concluded that Google does have monopoly power in the market, at least when it comes to online searches. Now, that same report went on to say that Google established its position in several markets through acquisition, snapping up successful technologies that other businesses had previously developed, buying an estimated 260 companies in the last 20 years. Now, October is known as the month of surprise, just ahead of U.S. presidential elections. Now, last time it was the Comey-Clinton emails, and this year is proving to be no different. Now, I'm not actually talking about the Hunter Biden emails, rather a surprise from Russia. With little more than 100 days remaining on the New START treaty, Vladimir Putin has an October surprise of his own. To expand on this, let's turn to Scott Ritter. He's a former UN weapons inspector and former Marine Corps intelligence officer. Thanks for being with us tonight, Scott. So first, it's another Obama-era accord. It looks like it's going to be allowed to lapse. The New START treaty from 2011 sunsets in February of 2021. First, can you briefly tell us what the New START treaty is, what it covers, and how Vladimir Putin comes into play with his October surprise?
Well, the New START treaty is a strategic arm reduction treaty. Its origins are with the original START treaty, which was signed in 1991, and it carried on through START 2, START 3, but those were never ratified. because the United States and Russia, ran into some difficulties on things like the United States withdrawing unilaterally from the anti-ballistic missile treaty, et cetera. The Under Bush, George W. Bush, they replaced the START treaty framework with something called SORT, which was basically a very abbreviated treaty vehicle that called for reduction in arms but no verification. And this was due to expire in 2010. Barack Obama negotiated the new treaty called New START, which brought us back to the same framework that existed during START with significant reductions and verification. It's part of what I would call legacy arms control, related to the family of arms control agreements between the United States and the former Soviet Union that incorporated stringent verification compliance mechanisms like on-site inspection, et cetera. And if it lapses, this will be a very dark day for arms control, because not only will it free both sides from any restrictions, but there won't be any inspections, there won't be any verification, and distrust will seep in where it doesn't exist today. And you could see a brand new arms race, which both Russia and the United States, wasting billions of dollars producing weapons that, frankly speaking, don't need to be produced.
And Scott, Vladimir Putin wants the 5-year extension, but he is willing to make a gesture of goodwill by immediately signing just a 1-year extension. Robert O'Brien, the national security advisor, outright rejected the offer. Why do you suppose that is?
Well, the Trump administration is, first of all, understand we are in the presidential silly season right now, where politics takes precedent over everything. And the president, Donald Trump, is desperate to be seen as being a deal maker, somebody who can, make deals that other presidents couldn't. He doesn't like New START primarily because it's a legacy of President Obama. And he's laboring under the misconception that Russia is more desperate for this treaty being extended than the United States, and that Russia is susceptible to being pressured into making concessions that are outside of the treaty framework just to get an extension. And Vladimir Putin put the United States on notice through a televised conference call he had with the Russian National Security Council, where he pretty much rejected that and said there will be no concessions, but what we will agree to is a 1-year extension that we can do right now. And then during that year period, we can sit down and have normal talks about the future of arms control. But Russia's not going to allow themselves to be bullied into agreeing to measures that aren't contained within a treaty. There are no verification mechanisms into it, and frankly speaking, are only designed to make President Trump look strong on the eve of an election.